Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the role of special educators in school safety efforts, which includes security, emergency management, and preparedness activities. This event is a part of the REMS TA Center's role-based webinar series, through which we've been exploring the various professionals within schools and school districts and how they can contribute to a safe and supportive learning environment all year round. My name is Shantae Stokes, and I serve as a Senior Training and Technical Assistant Research Associate at the REMS TA Center. As with all of our webinars in this series and beyond, there are a few tips for engaging with the platform and us throughout the event. We've placed links to relevant online resources in the web links pod and a resource list in the downloads pod. Please explore and feel free to share them with your colleagues. You are welcome to pose any questions that you may have in the Q&A pod or communicate any technical difficulties that you experience. We will be answering questions following the presentation and as time permits. After the live event, please send any questions for us to our help desk at info@remstacenter.org. We will also be hosting other events that can be found on our website. And this webinar is being recorded and will be made available in archive form on our website within 7 business days after the live event. I'm so happy to introduce our guest speaker for today. We have joining us Dr. Toni Beckett. She is a school administrator coordinator and academic interventionist with the Maryland Department of Health. She's been an educator for over 25 years. She's currently an academic interventionist who works with teachers and students. Students learn differently and are given strategies to help them overcome challenges within the classroom. Dr. Beckett has worked in various positions in the pre-K through 12 public and non-public sector, specializing in the area of special education. These positions include teacher, school administrator, IEP manager, consultant, and disabilities coordinator. Toni holds a doctorate in school administration, Master of Special Education, and a bachelor's in business administration. Her dissertation was On the Job, a study of resiliency, teacher burnout, and coping styles. Dr. Beckett serves on a variety of boards and local committees. She's also an advocate for children with disabilities. Thank you so much for joining us on today, Dr. Beckett. Here's the agenda for today's webinar. First, we'll provide an overview of the importance of collaborative planning and school emergency operation plans development. Then our guest presenter will provide a closer look at the role of special educators in school safety. The REMS TA Center will discuss how special educators can enhance the 6-up planning process, and we'll have a question and answer session. And we will end the webinar with key resources to support your work. Let's get started with a poll question. Have you heard of the REMS TA Center before today's session? And if so, in what context? So have you attended a live training, in person, at your site? Have you attended a virtual training, such as a webinar like this, or via our virtual trainings by request program? Or requested technical assistance, downloaded a resource from our website, met us at a national conference, or other? And if it's other, feel free to share exactly how you are familiar with the REMS TA Center in the Q&A pod. Thank you all so much for participating in that. I see most of you all have attended a webinar, so thank you for that. And if this is your first time meeting us, we welcome you. The U.S. Department of Education Office of Safe and Supported Schools administers the REMS TA Center to help build the preparedness capacity, including prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery efforts of schools, school districts, and institutions of higher education with their community partners at the local, state, and federal level. The REMS TA Center staff members are available via email or phone to respond to your requests for technical assistance on emergency operations plan development. Communities and families expect schools and school districts to keep children and youth safe from threats, including crime and violence, as well as hazards like natural disasters, disease outbreaks, and hazardous material spills. In collaboration with their community partners, schools and school districts can plan for these potential threats and hazards through the creation of an emergency operations plan. The school EOP describes how people, not just students, but also teachers, administrators, staff, and visitors, as well as property, will be protected on and off campus. It also details who is responsible for carrying out specific actions before, during, and after an emergency. It identifies the personnel, equipment, facilities, supplies, and other resources available, and it also outlines how actions will be coordinated. While school EOPs vary in their content, as they are customized according to the school building, they generally contain three main sections, which is the basic plan section, and that provides an overview of the school's approach to emergency operations, such as training, exercises, and information collection. You also have the functional annexes section, which presents how the school will manage common essential functions like evacuation, communications, accounting for all people, etc., before, during, and after an emergency. And then you also have the threat and hazard specific annexes section, and that identifies the protocols schools will follow to address the specific emergencies such as hurricanes, wildfires, tornadoes, food contamination, as well as power outages. School EOPs should be developed by school-level emergency planning and response teams with membership from the district's core planning team. The formation of this multidisciplinary team is outlined in step 1 of the 6-step planning process. That's in the guide for developing high-quality school emergency operations plan, and that's known as the school guide, and the role of districts in developing high-quality school emergency operations plan, which is known as the district guide. These guides may be used by core planning teams to create new plans, as well as to revise and update existing plans. Access the at-a-glance versions from the web link spot or download the PDFs via the REMS TA Center website. So why collaborate? Planning and development of a school EOP requires the expertise of a diverse group of people so that it reflects the diverse needs of the school community. Everyone has expertise to contribute, including school administrators, transportation directors, teachers, school facility managers, information technology specialists, school nurses, community engagement specialists, school psychologists, mental health professionals, as well as families and parents, school nutrition directors, and of course, special educators, which is why we are here today. Now we're going to go over some of the types of special educators. So we have learning disabilities teachers, emotional and behavioral disorders teachers, autism specialists, speech and language pathologists, as well as occupational and physical therapists. Special educators can play a key role in the development, implementation, and refinement of functional annexes that outlines courses of action the school will take in the event different types of emergencies impact the safety of school buildings and grounds. You have communications and warnings, which would be helping students process information. Evacuation, which would be supporting the student, supporting the development of equitable procedures. Lockdown and shelter in place, helping students with special needs build resilience through emergency exercises. Public medical and mental health, providing insight on the specialized needs of students and mental and emotional disorders and with limited mobility. And then continuity of operations will be designing individualized education plans for students who require extra support during as well as after an emergency. Now we'd like to check in with you all to get some feedback via poll. What role do you play in school safety, security, emergency management, and preparedness? Thank you all so much for responding and participating in the poll. It appears most people are emergency operations plan development and a few for incident response. Thank you all so much for your participation in that. So now I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Beckett, and she'll talk more about the role of special educators in school safety. Dr. Beckett?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon now. How's everyone today? You all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, when special education teachers make an intentional effort to get to know each other and their students, it can foster in students' sense of belonging and connection to the whole school community, which can build a foundation for academic success. Positive teacher-student relationships lead to increased cooperation and engagement in the classroom. It also contributes to a welcoming, inclusive school climate that promotes equity, school, and emotional learning and improves students. It's important in emergency planning that students and teachers be identified. It's important for students with disabilities who could possibly cause harm to themselves or others, request assistance with assessments to determine if a student has a disability, and gain their insight in gathering additional information. It's important to provide guidance on how to meet students' physical and emotional needs. Special educators are ideal candidates for school core planning teams as they are experts in disability issues, policies, and legislation, and supporting their school students with disabilities and the service which they provide. There's also an important need for collaborative partners. These include, this team includes parents, school psychologists, behavioral support staff, school leaders, and teachers alike. The three most important roles of a special educator is to provide resources, support, and mentor. Special educators can provide a positive impact on students. Fostering students' sense of belonging and connection to school community, plus contributing to a welcoming and inclusive school climate that promotes equity, social, and emotional learning is equal to a foundation for academic success and, again, improve student outcomes. Should consider the needs of most vulnerable populations first. Special education students entitled to emergency services and should be considered and included during all emergency planning. Providing for students with disabilities before, during, and after an emergency helps ensure their safety. We should consider a variety of disabilities to adequately incorporate these students into all emergency planning. First, visual, communication, mobility, cognitive, attentional, and emotional. Planning team at different levels. The school district level, administrators, instructional and support staff, food, maintenance, building and ground staff, community partners, and parents and guardians. School level staff should include the school district representatives, school administrators, school psychologists, related service providers, school nurses, special educators, counselors, general educators, among others. The roles of special educators on planning team provide information about the extra barriers to mobility and communication possibly encountered during an emergency. Details how to effectively address other specific disabilities and integrate proper courses of action into the plan, and assist with developing functional annexes to ensure needs fully considered, that is, American Sign Language interpreter, where needed. Creation of confidential roster created by the emergency planning team. It identifies students who have disabilities, lists their teachers, their classrooms, daily schedules, and notes their potential needs during an emergency. These may include any relevant strategies enabling successful participation in general education school activities. Labeled as classified with access limited only to authorized personnel. These notes are stored with administration, emergency gear, folders, written utensils, and other needed items. Why include special education teachers on a team? Multidisciplinary team includes teachers, parents, and other professionals with a variety of specialties because we all bring a wealth of knowledge to the team. Members work to provide the best services for special education students. Necessary for collaboration among all people who provide services to students with disabilities. Special education teachers serve as key team members to help identify and meet needs of students with physical disabilities or health impairments. Usually, special educators provide and monitor accommodations, lead the multidisciplinary team, they manage information flow for students with disabilities, they write or update the individualized education program, that is the IEP, and lead meetings on individual students. These types of assessments regarding school safety, daily and annually, notations, formal and informal assessments, formal assessments based on grading system-based evaluation to monitor students' knowledge. Informal assessments do not have any standard grading criteria. Assessments determine students' conduct, academic progression, social abilities, and overall behavior. They provide measurement and establishes physical, cognitive, and emotional deficits that could hinder overall academic success and affect school safety. How special educators can enhance the 6-step planning process. You form a collaborative planning team, understand the situation. You can determine the goals and objectives, plan development, that is identifying courses of action, plan preparation, review and approval, plan implementation, and maintenance. The core planning team, the special educator, they determine the learning disabilities teacher, emotional and behavior disorders teacher, autism specialist, speech and language pathologist, occupational and physical therapist.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beckett. I will now share a little bit more information about identifying core planning teams. As mentioned earlier, the most comprehensive and effective school EOP is developed by a multidisciplinary planning team which adds value to the breadth, depth, and scope of the plan. Special education staff provide a variety of specialized skills and support services, and this includes learning disabilities teachers who may help the school core planning team understand how to adjust emergency exercises and how to accommodate the learning style of all students. Emotional and behavioral disorder teachers who can offer insight on how trauma-informed care and other mental health support services must be designed to consider those students who may have emotional or behavioral disorders. Consider those students or with an autism specialist who can help the school core planning team understand the unique needs of students who have autism spectrum disorders as courses of action are drafted and practiced. And then for speech language pathologists, they can support efforts to ensure that communications and warnings take into account the needs of students who may have communication disorders and thus need specialized support in the event of an emergency. And then occupational and physical therapists who will play an essential role in educating the core planning team on how to ensure that response efforts are equitable in considering students who may need support as particular emergency management functions are carried out, such as evacuations. In step 2, the planning team identifies hazards and threats unique to the school community and then prioritizes them. Assessments are important sources of information, such as culture and climate assessment, capacity assessment, behavioral threat assessment, as well as site assessment. It's critical to involve special educators in the development of assessments to support step 2 efforts. They can serve as a critical site assessment partner and identify vulnerable areas that particularly impact students with special needs, such as evacuation routes, signage, and the location of emergency notification systems throughout the school building. Step 3, the team decides which threats and hazards will be addressed in the EOP and then develops goals and objectives for each. So during this work, the team identifies cross-cutting functions and develop goals and objectives for them. So special educators should participate in the development of goals and objectives for as many applicable threats, hazards, and emergency management functions as possible. As mentioned previously, insight from different types of special education teachers may be more beneficial than others, depending on the type of threat or hazard or the emergency management function. For example, insight from physical and occupational therapists will be helpful in the event of any type of emergency that requires evacuation. They can help the school core planning team develop possible goals, which are broad, general statements that indicate a desired outcome. Before an emergency, develop a plan to evacuate students who have mobility issues in the event stairwells are inaccessible. During an emergency, work with first responders and the incident commander to ensure that they are aware of the location of students who require evacuation assistance. After an emergency, gain insight from students on how the evacuation process can be improved. On step 4, the planning team builds upon the goals and objectives created in the previous step and assigns courses of action that addresses the who, what, and how for achieving them. Together, they form annexes or portions of the EOP. Courses of action should outline the roles and responsibilities of special educators in responding to a variety of threats and hazards and in activating various functions. Special educators should be involved in the development of courses of action before an emergency and the revision of courses of action after an emergency takes place and gaps in the plan are identified. Their input will be crucial throughout the process as the support that students with access and functional needs require may change from semester to semester or from year to year. Overall, they can help ensure that EOPs are equitable in responding to the needs of the whole school community, including not only students, but also staff. For step 5, the team develops a basic plan of the school EOP, formats the annexes, and reviews all sections. After the plan is approved by leadership, the team should securely share portions with all community partners. As a basic plan is developed, school core planning teams can consult special education staff to support the development of memoranda of understanding for any paraprofessionals hired by the school or families, to provide specialized support to students, maps of classrooms in which students with special needs are located, flow charts outlining the types of special education staff, and the school core planning team can consult. Finally, we have the planning team needs to implement the EOP. So this just means providing the whole school community with training and opportunities for practice. Many school safety drills include significant stimulus for participants, so loud noises or alarms, chaotic visual stimuli, and changes in everyday schedules or routines. These disruptions can create sensory overload, anxiety, and fear for students with special needs. And in some instances, students may be required to move quickly, assume protective positions, and hide while remaining silent. These can be problematic requests for students with disabilities. The complex requirements posed to students during emergency drills can prove to be challenging for students needing additional assistance from functional needs to learning disabilities. Special educators should not only be involved in the development of emergency exercises, they should also be involved in teams who conduct after-action reviews and reports following emergency exercises. Their input will be critical as members of the core planning team work to ensure the courses of action outlined in the EOP. Now we'll have our question and answer session. We will begin answering questions that you all have submitted to us. How do I adequately address the needs of our most influential populations during an emergency situation?
Basically, in order to address something like that, you have to have the meetings, ongoing meetings, and this has to be an issue that should be addressed every month as to the updates of what are the expectations, the amount of student population needed to be evacuated, and other prevalent information. This is something that needs to go to a team until the principal's attention the first of the year. A team should be established, and there should be ongoing communication. We should have a list of these students who should be evacuated, and there should be a plan in place that we are all participating in. A meeting should be established every month so that there can be updates and ongoing communication. And in order for this to work, this has to be a team effort. And we also need to include the parents in the communication with this, the parents in the communication with this team effort.
Thank you so much for that response, Dr. Beckett. And how are special educators prepared to collaborate with other staff such as school psychologists, school nurses, and others who support similar efforts?
Special educators they are to always take information and notes at all times on their students and their case and provide a case management for each and every student. Usually it's assembled throughout the school based on the teachers and the staff numbers, but there should be ongoing communication at all times with the students, with the parents, and the teams throughout the building. It's prevalent for special educators to take this information and be prepared at all times. And again, communication is the key. This information should be updated in student files at all times, as well as sent out to parents on a daily basis and with report cards. Communication and information regarding special needs students is very key to any success of these students and their safety.
Thank you so much for reiterating the importance of being prepared at all times, as well as the communication with parents. Another question, how do you develop plans or address loud alarms, especially when you have students that are hypersensitive to sound?
That's a really good question. Just recently, it's ironic that just recently I visited a school and there was a 3-year-old who was very sensitive, had very was hypersensitive. And in that, I would say for a young child like that, that should be identified very, very early on by the parents, the doctor, and then the school. It is important to have the proper accommodations and modifications for students with that type of need, because there are going to be loud sounds and different sounds throughout the year, not just with alarms, but just on a daily basis. So it's important to identify that very, very, very early and give the child what's needed in order for them to be able to be successful in the classroom setting and not be harmed by the sensitivity of hearing. So I think that's very important, and that's something that needs to be identified very soon.
Thank you so much for that. And we received another really good question in the chat. What is the best course of action for an emergency evacuation drill for a student who uses a wheelchair?
Basically, you would like to believe that, I would like to believe that a student of that nature would have a one-to-one aide with them at all times. And that person would be responsible for that child in every aspect, including evacuations. There should always be a place for that wheelchair to stay during evacuations. That child may be mobile to a degree. And if so, the wheelchair can be in a set place, for example, in a position in the hallway of some sort. You find that very often where a wheelchair is sitting somewhere and it's said to not touch the wheelchair at any time. It is for evacuations. And usually when that child has been identified from day one, the student and staff are abreast with why that is possible and why that is convenient for that particular student. So there should be a plan in place for elevators, because you can't use the elevators, and there should also be a plan in place as to who will actually remove that child from the school setting to evacuate that child with or without that wheelchair.
Thank you so much for that excellent response. And shifting a little bit, how should we include local emergency services with our planning process?
Local emergency systems, they should be in the meetings. They should receive a copy of the plan, and there should be certain codes that are implemented in the school that will identify both the school and the emergency services for the collaboration in case of an emergency. That's usually part of the plan, and the school should have the members of the local services to be participants in their plan, and they should have a copy of their plan in place so that everyone could be on the same accord when it's time to collaborate with an evacuation of this sort.
Great. Thank you so much. Do you think there's any resistance to including parents and families in planning, especially for those students that have access and functional needs? And what type of strategies would you recommend on strengthening the work and planning with parents and families?
Well, we need to let parents know that it's imperative that they are on board. They should be made comfortable. It's important to make the parents comfortable so that they would want to communicate and they would know the importance of evacuating their child in case of emergency. All parents should know and should be able to identify with what's in place. They should also be given a copy of the evacuation plan. They should have, the incentive should just be to know that there's safety amongst us and we're prepared for whatever may happen. Whether if a misfortune should occur, that we're prepared. And it's always good to let the parent know that their input is very much valued. And we're all working together to ensure the safety of all of our children. That's the incentive. The incentive is to just really let the parent know that they're welcome at all times. That's very important.
Another question is, the school security and evacuation modifications and accommodations for a child with exceptionalities be included in the student IEP?
Not necessarily. You may not find it in there, but it doesn't hurt. If it is brought up in the meeting, it would be added to the notes in the IEP on an annual basis. You wouldn't necessarily find a safety plan in there unless, of course, You most likely find a safety plan with a student with the 504 plan who does have accommodations such as wheelchair. That's not necessarily a disability thing with an IEP, but with more accommodations with the 504 plan. It will all depend.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that. And another question is, why must students with special needs included on EOPs be kept confidential?
It is imperative to keep all information confidential as it pertains to our children with special needs. It is their privacy that we do not want to violate, nor the parents, at any time. So with that being said, it is very important to keep everything confidential. And only a certain group of people throughout the school should be privy to such information. This information should be locked up at all times and should only be discussed amongst those on the team with regard to the collaboration of safety.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beckett, for providing these wonderful responses to the questions that came in. We are going to move forward with some key resources to support the work that you all do. We recently held a Twitter chat discussed the importance of special educators and their invaluable expertise and contributions to school safety, security, emergency management, and preparedness. The chat also went over how special education service models enhance school safety and assessment, and it brought awareness to the role of special educators in school safety. We also have a webinar on addressing access and functional needs in school and higher education emergency operations plan. Lastly, I just want to note that we are here for you as a resource via telephone, email, as well as Twitter. So please reach out if you have any technical assistance requests on any aspect of emergency management planning. Thank you all so much for attending today's webinar, for submitting your questions, and engaging with us throughout the event. Again, this webinar will be archived on our webinars page. We look forward to connecting with you all soon.